After my marriage, my overbearing and manipulative mother-in-law demanded that I transfer my $200 million company to my husband and take on the duties of a housewife. I refused. At a family gathering, she shouted at me. In a shocking display, she lunged across the dinner table, grabbing my hair and yanking it violently, insulting me in front of everyone. The guests were stunned, and although some tried to intervene, my husband did nothing to stop his mother's attack, revealing his deep submission to Helen's toxic influence. I kept calm, but my silence was filled with burning anger. I decided to seek revenge with my quick secret plan. The next day, I got a shocking surprise. Their tears of desperation were the sweet sound of revenge I had been waiting for all along. My name is Emily Lawson, and I've always believed that hard work and determination can carve out a successful life. At 35 years old, I am the CEO of a thriving company in San Francisco, valued at $200 million. I've poured my heart and soul into building this business from the ground up, and every achievement has been a testament to my commitment. I've never been one to focus on personal relationships. My work has always come first. Growing up in a small town, I learned early on that dreams require effort. My parents instilled in me the importance of education and perseverance. I worked tirelessly throughout my school years, earning scholarships that eventually led me to a prestigious university. I graduated at the top of my class with a degree in business management. From that moment on, I knew I wanted to start my own company, and nothing would stand in my way. For years, I dedicated myself to the growth of my company, focusing solely on building my brand and reputation. Late nights and early mornings were my routine. My friends often joked that I was married to my work, and they weren't entirely wrong. I found fulfillment in my career, in negotiating contracts, and in watching my dreams materialize. Love seemed like a distraction, something I didn't need. But that all changed when I met Mark Anderson. Mark was the son of William Anderson, a businessman whose company had a long-standing partnership with mine. Our first meeting was unremarkable, yet something about him intrigued me. He was handsome, with charming blue eyes that sparkled with enthusiasm. At first, I found his youthful spirit refreshing. He was 38, but carried an air of immaturity that made me smile. We hit it off during a business dinner, and I began to see glimpses of a different life, one that included companionship. As our relationship blossomed, I saw the potential for something special. Mark made me laugh, and we shared a passion for entrepreneurship. However, there was a shadow looming over our relationship: his mother, Helen Anderson. She was an overbearing figure in Mark's life, demanding and controlling. I dismissed my concerns initially, thinking I could manage the situation. After all, I was a successful businesswoman. How hard could it be to navigate a relationship with a man and his mother? Months passed, and we decided to get married. The wedding was grand, filled with family and friends. Mark promised me that he would support my career and my decisions. I thought I was marrying a partner who would uplift me. But soon after the wedding, I realized I had made a grave mistake. Helen wasted no time in making her demands known. It started subtly, a few casual comments about how a wife should prioritize her husband over her career. I brushed it off, reminding myself that I had worked too hard to let anyone dictate my life. But Helen's pressure increased with each passing day. One afternoon, while we were having tea, she bluntly stated, "Emily, you should consider transferring your business to Mark's name. It's what a good wife would do." I stared at her, shocked. "That's not possible, Helen. My company is my life's work. I can't just hand it over." "Why not?" she insisted, her voice rising. "You're his wife now. Your job should come second to your family." That was just the beginning. Helen's persistent demands became more aggressive. I could sense Mark's discomfort whenever I rejected his mother's suggestions, but he never intervened. It was as if he was caught in a web of loyalty to her, and it frustrated me deeply. The real turning point came during a family gathering at the Anderson home. I had hoped that this would be a chance for us to connect as a family. The evening started well, filled with laughter and good food. However, Helen seized the moment to confront me publicly. As guests mingled, she called me over. Emily, can we talk? She said with a forced smile, her eyes narrowing slightly. I really think we need to settle this business matter. I felt my heart race. What do you mean? I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. You need to transfer your company to Mark, she demanded, her voice echoing in the room. It's time to put family first. The room fell silent, all eyes on us. I felt the weight of the guests' stares. I cannot do that, Helen, I responded firmly. My company is my responsibility. I built it with my own hands. Her face flushed with anger, and before I knew it, she lunged across the table, grabbing my hair and yanking it violently. Gasps filled the room as I felt the shock of pain ripple through me. How dare you defy me? She shouted, her voice dripping with venom. Guests tried to intervene, but Mark just stood there, frozen, revealing his deep submission to Helen's toxic influence. The humiliation burned inside me as I looked around, realizing the moment had escalated into something far beyond a simple disagreement. Despite the pain and humiliation, I kept my composure, fighting back tears. I wouldn't let her see me break. I silently vowed that this would not be the end of my story. I could feel the anger boiling within me, and it wasn't just for the attack. It was for the realization that I had allowed this woman to manipulate my life. As I walked away from that gathering, I decided then and there that I would not be a victim. I would find a way to turn the tables and take back my power. The seeds of revenge were planted. I just needed the right opportunity. Little did they know, I was more than just a successful businesswoman. I was determined to reclaim what was mine and to teach Helen and Mark a lesson they would never forget. The next chapters of my life were about to unfold, and I was ready to fight back. After the incident at the Anderson family gathering, a simmering anger ignited within me. I had always prided myself on my ability to overcome challenges, and this humiliation would not be the end of my story. Instead, it would mark the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would reclaim my power and show both Mark and Helen that I was not someone to be trifled with. In the days that followed, I focused intently on my work, burying myself in my responsibilities. I wanted to distract myself from the humiliation, but I also needed to formulate a plan. I couldn't let this situation fester. My company had grown to $200 million not just through hard work, but also through strategic decisions. I needed to think strategically now. The first step was to gather information. I reached out to my contacts within the industry and began investigating William Anderson's company. I wanted to understand their financial standing and any weaknesses I could exploit. As I delved deeper, I discovered that their company had been facing difficulties for quite some time. The management was out of touch, and their sales had been declining steadily. It was the kind of vulnerability I could work with. During this time, I also made a conscious effort to maintain a facade of normalcy in my relationship with Mark. I put on a brave face whenever I was around him and his mother. Mark would often talk about how proud he was of his family's legacy, and I'd nod along, hiding my true feelings. It's important to support family, I would say, trying to blend in. Meanwhile, inside, I was plotting a course that would change everything. I began to network more aggressively, attending events and seminars where I could connect with influential figures in the business community. I was building alliances and reinforcing my reputation as a formidable businesswoman. My goal was clear: to position myself in a way that I could either take over or significantly undermine the Anderson family business. One afternoon, while discussing strategies with my financial advisor, I mentioned my intentions. Emily, if you want to take control of the Andersons company, you'll need to buy a controlling share. But you'll have to be discreet. If they catch wind of your plans, they'll do everything to sabotage you. I nodded, absorbing his words. I know. I'll need to be strategic and patient. This isn't just about revenge. It's about showing them that I am not a pawn in their game. With renewed determination, I devised a financial strategy. I started to quietly purchase shares of William Anderson's company on the stock market. The more shares I acquired, the stronger my position became. I worked late into the nights, crunching numbers and analyzing market trends. Every small victory fueled my resolve. Simultaneously, I made sure to document every encounter I had with Helen and Mark. I wanted to gather evidence of their manipulative behavior, knowing it could serve as leverage later. Whenever I visited the Anderson home, I paid close attention to their dynamics. I noted how Helen often belittled Mark, using guilt to control him. It only reinforced my belief that they needed to be taught a lesson. One evening, while I was at a business dinner, I overheard a conversation between two industry insiders discussing the Anderson family's faltering reputation. If they don't turn things around soon, they might have to sell off parts of the business, one said, shaking his head. The words sent a thrill down my spine. This was the confirmation I needed. I could move in for the kill, at just the right moment. As weeks passed, I became more entrenched in my plans. I reached out to potential investors who were looking for opportunities. My goal was to gather enough backing to make a substantial bid for a controlling stake in the Andersons company. I felt an exhilarating mix of anticipation and determination. I was no longer just Emily Lawson, the businesswoman. I was the architect of my own revenge, carefully crafting a strategy that would lead to their downfall. I envisioned the moment when I would stand before them, revealing my triumph and turning their world upside down. Every time I thought about that dinner table confrontation, the anger surged anew, igniting my resolve. I was going to show them that they had underestimated me. Their arrogance and manipulation would come back to haunt them. Soon, I would rise like a phoenix from the ashes, leaving the Andersons to confront the consequences of their actions. The path was set and I was ready. Little did they know that a storm was brewing, one that would change the course of our lives forever. My patience and strategy were about to pay off, and the final act of my revenge was drawing closer. As the weeks turned into months, my plan to take control of the Anderson family business took shape. Each day, I diligently worked behind the scenes, quietly acquiring shares of William Anderson's company. My financial advisor guided me through the intricate process of building a stake that would give me the leverage I needed. I felt an electric thrill each time I received updates on my acquisitions, knowing I was one step closer to my goal. Meanwhile, I maintained my facade around Mark and Helen. At family dinners, I forced myself to engage in lighthearted conversations, even as I mentally prepared for the moment I would unveil my plans. Mark remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. He often praised his mother. "You've built a great family legacy, Mom. I hope to keep it going," he would say, and I would nod, suppressing the urge to roll my eyes. One evening, during a particularly lavish dinner at the Anderson home, I felt the tension rising. Helen, dressed to the nines, was in rare form, boasting about her family's accomplishments. "Our company has always been the leader in this industry," she proclaimed, her tone dripping with superiority. "But with the right vision, it can go even further." I smiled politely, my heart racing. "Yes, Helen, but a vision must adapt to the changing times," I replied, knowing the words held deeper significance. I wanted her to understand that her outdated views were about to come crashing down. That night, after the guests had left, I found myself alone with Mark. He poured us both a glass of wine and casually mentioned how proud he was of his family's legacy. "It's a big responsibility, but I know we'll keep it strong," he said, confidence radiating from him. "I really wish you'd consider stepping back from your company, Emily. I mean, wouldn't it be nice to focus on families?" His words stung, and I felt the familiar rush of anger. "Mark, you know how important my company is to me. I won't just give it up," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. I could see his expression change, a mix of confusion and concern creeping into his eyes. The following week, I received a tip from one of my industry contacts about an upcoming board meeting for William Anderson's company. This was my chance. I decided I would attend and present myself as a potential partner. I knew this would send shockwaves through the Anderson family, especially once they learned that I was no longer just the wife of their son, but a formidable player in the business world. On the day of the meeting, I arrived early, my heart racing with excitement. The boardroom was filled with stern-looking executives, and I took a seat at the table, confident and poised. When the meeting began, I introduced myself, keeping my tone professional but friendly. "I'm Emily Lawson, and I believe I can offer your company a fresh perspective," I stated, noting the surprised expressions around the room. As I presented my ideas, I could see skepticism on some faces, especially among those loyal to Helen. But I also noticed intrigue. I highlighted how my company could benefit from a merger and the advantages of innovation and adaptation in a rapidly changing market. The more I spoke, the more I could sense the shift in the room. After my presentation, I could feel the tension building. Helen, who had just entered the room, looked furious. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice sharp. You're not in a position to make demands, Emily. With that, I felt a wave of confidence wash over me. Actually, Helen, I believe I am, I replied calmly, meeting her gaze without flinching. You see, I now own a significant portion of your family's company, and I'm here to discuss its future. Gasps filled the room. The stunned silence that followed was almost deafening, and I knew I had them exactly where I wanted. Mark's eyes widened, his mouth agape as he processed the revelation. It was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment to turn the tables and show them that I would no longer be a pawn in their game. The stage was set for the final act of my revenge, and I was ready to make them confront the consequences of their arrogance. The balance of power was about to shift dramatically, and I couldn't wait to see their reaction. The atmosphere in the boardroom turned electric as my revelation hung in the air. I could see Helen's face turn an alarming shade of red, her composure slipping away. "This is unacceptable," she shouted, her voice rising. "You have no right to interfere with our family business." But I stood my ground, a calm smile on my face. "Actually, Helen, I have every right. As a significant shareholder, I'm here to ensure that the company thrives. It's time for some changes, and I intend to lead them." Mark, still in shock, turned to his mother, trying to make sense of what he had just heard. "What do you mean, Emily? You're part of this?" His voice was a mix of confusion and disbelief, as if he couldn't fathom how I had outmaneuvered them. "Yes, Mark. While you were focused on family legacies and traditions, I was building my own legacy," I replied, my tone unwavering. "And now, your family's business needs a new direction, one that embraces innovation instead of clinging to outdated practices." Helen's frustration was palpable, her fingers trembling at her sides. "You think you can just waltz in here and take over? You're nothing without my family's name," she retorted, her voice dripping with disdain. I leaned forward, my eyes locked onto hers. "That's where you're wrong, Helen. I built my company from the ground up, without anyone's help. I'm not just a name, I'm a force in this industry. And you've underestimated me every step of the way." The other board members were captivated, some exchanging glances of astonishment. I continued, addressing them directly. "If we want this company to survive, it must adapt. I propose a merger that will revitalize both our businesses. My expertise can guide us to greater success." As the meeting progressed, I outlined my vision, detailing the benefits of the merger and the strategic advantages it would bring. The tension in the room gradually shifted from hostility to curiosity. I could sense that I was gaining traction, and my confidence soared. However, Helen wasn't finished yet. "This isn't over, Emily. You think you can just take everything from us? I won't allow it." Her voice was laced with desperation, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind as she plotted her next move. "That's the thing, Helen," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I'm not taking anything from you. I'm giving you a chance to adapt and thrive. But if you refuse to accept reality, then you will face the consequences of your actions." With that, I concluded my presentation, and the room fell silent. I looked around, gauging the reactions of the board members. Slowly, they began to nod in agreement, some whispering to one another. I knew then that I had won them over. Helen stood, her face a mixture of fury and disbelief. "You'll regret this, Emily. You've made a powerful enemy today." She spat before storming out of the room. As she left, I turned to Mark, who still seemed dazed. "Mark, this is a new beginning for both of us. If you're willing to embrace change, we can build something incredible together." He looked at me, uncertainty in his eyes. "I don't know what to think right now, Emily. My whole world feels upside down." "Then let's turn it right side up," I replied, offering him a reassuring smile. "Together, we can make this work." In the following weeks, the transition was anything but smooth. Helen rallied against me, trying to sway the board and discredit my plans. But I was ready for her. I had anticipated her moves and gathered evidence of her past mismanagement, ready to present it at the next board meeting. When the day came, I stood in front of the board once again, armed with facts and figures. "You see, this isn't just about me. It's about the future of this company. If we allow Helen to continue her outdated practices, we will face dire consequences. I have the data to prove it." As I laid out my case, I could see the tide turning against Helen. The board began to see her for who she truly was, a controlling, manipulative force that had stifled innovation and growth. By the end of the meeting, the board voted unanimously in favor of my proposal. Helen's reign was over, and I felt a surge of triumph wash over me. I had not only secured my position but had also paved the way for a brighter future. As I walked out of the meeting room, I couldn't help but feel a sense of empowerment. I had taken control of my life and my company, transforming from a victim of manipulation into a powerful leader. I was ready to lead this new chapter with strength and integrity, and I had learned that betrayal could lead to unexpected triumphs. In the end, I realized that true power comes not just from success in business, but from knowing your worth and never allowing anyone to take that from you. I had won the battle, but the war of business and resilience would always continue.